Welcome to Fun with Annuities with your host, me, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent. Can annuities be fun? Can contractual guarantees be fun? Absolutely they can. Find out the brutal facts about annuities with no sales pitches or high pressure nonsense. Just the brutal and factual annuity truth, which is all you need to hear. Let's have some fun with annuities, and let's have that fun start right now. Welcome to Fun with Annuities. I'm your host, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent, licensed in all 50 states. Boy, am I excited for today's guest. His name is Dan Prescher, and he is part of an organization magazine. Actually, I call them an organization because they do a lot in the space of seniors and retirees moving abroad. Their website is internationalliving.com, which I'll have on my website. Obviously, there'll be a permanent page for Dan on that, so you can go and look at his stuff. But let me give you a little bit of background about him. He's a graduate of the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and the University of Iowa. Side note, my wife of 33 years is from Rushville, Nebraska, which is, as I say, it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. Since starting International Living in 2001, he and his wife, Suzanne, have lived and worked in 7 locations throughout the world: Mexico, Panama, Nicaragua, Ecuador, etc., and have explored dozens of more countries like Brazil and Argentina, Colombia, Belize, Costa Rica, Honduras, Ireland, France, Thailand. I could keep going, but you get what I'm talking about. I think right now, and I'll verify this with him, that they're residents of Mexico at this point of the podcast taping, so look at the date. But they also provide a lot of webinars and really good information on their site. I was on their site last night. It is one of the best websites I've seen, internationalliving.com. If you have ever thought about visiting, going, living, trying it out internationally, this is the place to go. They've written 2 books. One's called Live Richer, Spend Less, and the other is the International Living Guide to Retiring Overseas on a Budget. Those can be purchased on their site or on Amazon, etc. Without further ado, let me introduce fellow guitar player Dan Prescher. Hey, Dan, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Stan. Good to see you, man. I'm looking forward to seeing your guitar collection. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of us frustrated guitar players. People always say, well, Stan, where do you play? I'm like, in a room alone. That's where I play.
In the basement.
In the basement. People are probably, my listeners on this podcast are like, wait a minute, we talking about money? Kinda. Yeah, we're talking about money and lifestyle. And just as a premise to what we're getting ready to jump into, my clients and the people that follow this podcast, they know a couple of my sayings. One of them is there's no U-Hauls behind hearses. And that means let's live for the day. You can't take it with you. And if COVID's done one thing for all of us out here, it's made us realize the fragility of life, and that you might want to live today like you're dying tomorrow. I don't want to be, brutally fatal, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. And if you have a bucket list, I'm going to tell you to pull it out, because we're going to talk about it today. Dan and Stan are going to talk about your bucket list, and if you don't have one, get out a pen. So with that, Dan, give us kind of an overview of international living and how it all kind of works from the standpoint of people retiring, getting ready to retire, or already retired.
Sure. I want to make sure that everybody knows Susan and I started with International Living in 2001, but it was going 20 years before that. So it's this.
Oh, that's right. It's 40 years. It's been 40 years. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, Dan, I'm just going to call you the go-to person, because for my people, you're going to be the go-to person. They're going to say, I want to talk to Stan for annuities and Dan for international travel. So it's the Stan and Dan show.
And so, you're absolutely right. It's a lifestyle thing. But lifestyle, as you know, lifestyle and finance are intimately connected. You can't really tease the two apart.
Sure.
And 40 years ago, International Living's premise was that if you were living on a fixed income, if you were getting Social Security or a pension of some kind, and you wanted to make it go as far as possible, you'd move to someplace where your cost of living was significantly less than where you were living then. It turns out that there are dozens and dozens of places around the world that are absolutely beautiful, exotic. We think of them as paradises, beach, mountains, you name it, where you can live for significantly less than you live in North America. And what we've started to kind of call that lifestyle arbitrage. You know, if
I
if
love
you
it.
have a certain amount of money each month and you could move tomorrow to a place where it costs you half as much to live, you've doubled the value of your resources. So that's really just the premise. That's what we've been doing for the last 40 years, showing people where those places are, how to get to them, how to choose the one that's right for you, how to do that whole thing successfully.
One of the things that hit me when I was doing some research on what you guys do is you don't have to go all in. You can test the waters. You can test it in a myriad of ways. One of the ways that I think is fantastic is Dan is typically the MC and host of their, they do some webinars. Yep. And some seminars, etc., that will kind of get you acclimated to what the premise of moving overseas. But I think you would be the first one to say, don't go all in. Don't fall off the cliff, as I call it. Don't be a Jimmy Cliff. You know, tiptoe into it, do some research, explain that process of, hey, let's look at it. Let's me and the spouse look at this as an option and then make our decision. How do my clients and listeners tiptoe into that?
The International Living website, as you mentioned, is a great place to start. It's broad and it's deep. So you can start doing a lot of research there, and research is really the key. You want to start by ruthlessly profiling yourself and deciding what you're looking for, what you can do without, what you can't do without. Because honestly, moving to another country, another culture, another financial system is not for everybody. You have to have a little taste for adventure, a little urge for challenges, because you'll find a different challenge every day when you move to a country that's using a different currency and a different language. But that, we found, is what keeps a lot of the people we know that move abroad young, facing those challenges, staying light on your feet. You have to be engaged all the time. And being engaged with a beach in Panama or a mountaintop in Ecuador or right. A mountain valley in Costa Rica, that's good engagement. That freshens you up. It keeps you young. But you have to ask yourself, honestly, is that what you want? For a lot of people, the devil they know is much more comfortable for them, and they don't want to move away from that. But man, if you ruthlessly profile yourself, say, you know, I would like to live at about 5,000 feet in a place where I don't need heating or air conditioning, where there's public transportation so I don't need to own a car, where the healthcare system, the public healthcare system, is good enough to meet my needs, and there's an expat community that I can interface with. Those are the boxes that I need to tick off. What countries match those requirements? And then go there and see how you feel. Like you say, you don't have to sell the farm and jump off the cliff. Go there and stay for a month, 2 months, 6 months, as long as you comfortably can, to find out what it's really like to live there. You'll get a gut feeling about it, and that's what you got to go by.
One of the things that you said, a couple of things that I wrote down that you said that I think was just very good, is it's not a pass-fail thing, you know, to go either part-time or full-time, and you can become what you called, in an interview I saw with you, a serial relocator, which I thought was fantastic. Because people that manage money and that have done a good job checking the boxes and getting to a point where they're going to live the lifestyle that they want to live, it's hard for them to do this type of hard pivot. Because they have the grandchildren. And I believe I heard an interview with you and your wife talking about, you know, you come back and see the grandchildren, etc. I think it's important for the listeners to understand, we're not talking about, hey, let's move from Iowa and we're going to move to Ecuador and that's it. No, you can, instead of going on the vacation, going on an extended vacation to see if that's right for you, and say, listen, we're going to live next year 6 months in Ecuador and next year 6 months in Panama, etc. Do most people do that, or do people go all in and then go to Panama, fall in love with it, and become a citizen?
It's a very mixed bag. It runs the gamut. My wife and I right now have a charming 7-year-old daughter here in the United States. We were visiting her when COVID hit, and that's why we're still here. We're actually in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm talking to you from here now.
That's God's country, baby.
We can't wait to get back offshore because
I hear
winter's coming on.
Yes.
And Omaha, Nebraska is the most wonderful place on earth to live 6 weeks out of the year.
It's not a garden spot in the winter. There's no doubt.
Right. But you're right. We're part-timers now because we want to be a part of our granddaughter's life. So we'll go to Ecuador for 3 months, come back. We'll go to Merida, where we're registered as permanent residents, permanent Mexican residents for 6 months, and come back. That's perfectly possible to do. You know more about the financial side of that than I do, because you got to have your ducks in a row. You have to have your finances arranged in such a way that you have that flexibility and you're not breaking financial ties or trying to reestablish financial ties every time you move. That's perfectly possible to do. It's not difficult. It just takes some special skills and some special considerations. You need a little bit of specialized knowledge to do it. But if you have that knowledge, man, you can live abroad part-time, you can live abroad full-time, you can be a serial relocator, live full-time in Ecuador, then move to Panama, then move to Mexico. We know people who have 2 or 3 places around the globe and just rotate them all year long, depending on the season, depending on how they feel. And those other 2 places can be making you money while you're not living there. You know, you can get some return on investment depending on how you want to play your real estate, your rentals. It's a mixed bag, and you can put together a really nice lifestyle that doesn't cost you a lot of money.
And I'm excited because internationalliving.com is a 40-year resource. They just didn't start this overnight. So people have always asked me in the past, I've never had a good answer until today, which is, I'm thinking about X because I knew someone who went over to this country, and I never had a place to say, okay, go here, because on your site, one of the things I found really interesting was you have a calculator that you can put in and then put in the country and figure out cost of living. Because most people say, well, that sounds great, Stan the annuity man. But, what's Panama cost? What's Ecuador cost? What's Thailand cost? You have a calculator, and I'm big on calculators because if you go to my site at theannuityman.com, you can run quotes and you can see what income streams are going to be in US dollars. You have the calculator for international living that involves money, which I think is fantastic because there's really no guesswork. In other words, how far will my money go? You have provided that real-time 24/7, which is great. Speak a little bit about the calculator that you have on your site at internationalliving.com.
It is a broad and fairly blunt tool because, as you know, no matter where you live on the globe, you can spend as much or as little as you want. It depends on the lifestyle that you want. These are general cost of living figures that we get from our correspondents who are living in these countries, from the people that we talk to, information that we gather off government lists, things like that. This is a lot of the information that we use in our global retirement index as well. We just crunch as many numbers as we can, and you come up with kind of a general good quality cost of living where you're not living in a multi-million-dollar seaside place or a shack down in the valley. You're living a great lifestyle. You're having good medical care. And fortunately, most of these places have very good national healthcare systems that people can take advantage of. And you can find out which of these countries meets your needs, depending on how much you're retiring on. If you're getting, if you and your spouse are getting $2,400 a month from a Social Security payment, what country matches that financial need for you and pushes the rest of your buttons, gives you the weather that you want, lets you settle in easily, takes care of your healthcare needs. All of that ties together. It's not just about money. What we don't want people to do is consider themselves economic refugees and just realize, we can't retire in the United States or Canada anymore. It's been our ideal retirement. We've been priced out of it in the United States and Canada. We need to go someplace where it's really cheap to live. And you can certainly do that, but if it's a place that you don't like, if it's a place that you don't get a good feeling about, you're just an economic refugee and you've made a mistake. We see a lot of people who regret making that move just for financial reasons. It's got to be from the heart too.
It's got to be from the heart. It's got to be a lifestyle play. I always tell people, you know, as I said, there's no U-Hauls behind hearses. I really believe that should be the International Living saying with the logo on the t-shirt. But, you know, I do have every single year a handful of clients that make this move. For a lot of reasons. A lot of them just don't want to watch cable news anymore. And I'm saying that's a pretty drastic way to do it, but instead of just turning the TV off. But I understand it. A lot of people are tired of everything that's going on here and they want to chat. You know, I always tell people retirement is chapter 2 of your life. So what do you want chapter 2 to look like? What I want this podcast to do is put a little seed in everyone's brain of, hey, this is a possibility. And now I have a resource at internationalliving.com that I can go to and trust, and I have a contact there that can be my Sherpa to get me there. Tell me about the consulting services, or how far do you help a person with the, or do you have people that if someone called up or contacted you, said, listen, I'm really, you know, it's like they call me. They say, I want an annuity, or I want a lifetime income stream. Stay in the annuity, man. Tell me the best one to get because I trust that you're going to tell the truth. Same question to you. I want to possibly test living overseas for a few months or 6 months. What does that process look like?
We don't, as far as I know, have any paid concierge services that will take you in hand and tell you, this is what you have to do. This is how much money you need. This is where you need to go. And this is your timeline. Everybody is different.
Okay.
You know, everybody's situation is different. At the conferences, they email, we always get the people who say, they'll give you their entire financial background and then say, what should I do with my money? That's somebody else's job.
That's my job.
That's what you do.
So in essence, and people that are familiar, let me interrupt real quick, Dan. People that work with me is we provide all the information and then let you make the decision on your terms and your time frame based upon all that information that we provide. It sounds like that's what's happening at International Living, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
We try to provide that firsthand information from people who are doing it right now, from people who have already done it. You can contact those people. And I want to go ahead and broaden the research universe for this whole international living thing, because now with Facebook, with Instagram, with bulletin boards, you can talk to people in any community, any place on earth who are North American expats living the life right now in real time. I mean, I could get on here now and get on a Facebook group for Merida, Mexico, and ask where I can find the right size Phillips screws.
Right.
You know, if I want to do a do-it-yourself project, somebody there knows, and they will answer me. You can get that kind of information instantaneously, lifestyle information. People are happy to share that kind of stuff. We like to cull that and get the most dependable information that we can, the most actionable information that we can, people who have been doing it for a long time, and point people in the right direction. But the decision to pull the trigger and actually make that move is somebody's personal decision. Like you say, there's really no failure. I mean, if you move to a beautiful country for 6 months and decide it's not for you and move back, you're the wiser for it. I mean, you have more life experience. You've had a happy 6 months. You know more than you did before. You really can't fail at this thing. You can approach it in the wrong way. You can limit your chances of doing it successfully for the rest of your life if that's what you want to do. But hey, if you want to retrench, like Susan and I, if you decide that you want to give Cotacachi a try, and then you want to live in San Miguel de Allende for a while, and you know what, Panama City doesn't look too bad, you can do that. It's that affordable to live in some of these places where you're not sacrificing a lot of money to make a move.
And I always tell people, take shots in life. Take shots.
Yeah.
You're not going to make them all, but you're going to make some, and taking the shot is part of the process. One of the things your wife said, Suzanne, that I saw in a previous interview in my research, she's talking about moving out of your comfort zone, which can be a good thing. But part of that moving out of your comfort zone that people feel a little bit hesitant about is the safety and stability of the countries and some of the misinformation that's out there. One of the things she said that I thought was very poignant was, international living is not going to point you to a place that they wouldn't have their mother live in. And I thought that was very good. Can you expound upon that comfort zone, safety, stability, that for a lot of people and most of my clients, they can afford to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The question is, can we, should we, will we, what I'm hoping this is going to do is people listen to this podcast and go, you know what, to your spouse, this might be something we look at. We might not do, but we look at. Let's talk about safety and stability of these countries.
That's one of the big benefits of trying a place out first, getting your boots on the ground before you bust a permanent move.
Right.
Let's just take the example of Quito. When my wife and I first started working for International Living, we moved to Quito, Ecuador. We were there for a couple of years. And I sent a picture back to my mom of the place where we were living. And she said, "What's with the barbed wire and barred windows?" And I didn't even notice it. I'd been on the ground for a couple of months. This just became part of the scenery.
Yeah.
And I asked a local friend about it. And he said, here we don't call the police if something happens. We don't leave our doors open. We don't leave our windows open. We don't wait for somebody to break in and call the police. We keep our stuff secure.
Right.
Because here, if you don't take care of your stuff, if people see that you aren't taking care of your stuff, it's not really a crime to come and get it. And that's just one of the cultural things that we had to get used to.
Got it.
If you have a lot of stuff in a country where there is poverty, and there's a lot of poverty around the world, not taking care of your stuff is an invitation for somebody to come and liberate it from you. So it will get made better use of.
But there's a part of me that's thinking to myself, it's kind of a forced minimalization and a direction. And we live in a materialistic world. And it's one of those things where you don't, I know this is hard for me and you to grasp, but you don't need 20 guitars, you need one. I know it's hard. It's a hard concept for me to grasp, but
we were talking about this just yesterday about minimizing a little bit. Yeah.
We all need to do that. Everyone's nodding their head in unison, like, oh my gosh, we've accumulated so much. I think probably one of the things going overseas is you realize you don't need as much. Life doesn't demand you to have that.
Susan and I reached a point living in Ecuador, up in Cotacachi in the mountains there. It's a little leather crafting village of about 7,000 people. And there's a nice little expat community there. We lived in about 900 square feet in a beautiful condo that overlooked a mountain valley. Everything we owned was within 20 feet of us. And if we needed to bug out, we could put everything that was valuable to us in 2 suitcases and go. We could get on a plane in 90 minutes and go anywhere we wanted to do. And
that felt good, didn't it? Seriously, didn't that feel good to have it that compact from a life standpoint? And I'm assuming because you have it that compact, it makes you focus on things that actually matter.
Like the people that you meet, the experiences that you have, not the stuff that you get. Happiness depends on your relationships and the people that you know and the activities that you do, not on I won't show you all the crap that's piled around here off camera, but that's not where your happiness is. Your happiness is in your situation, the people you know, and the things you do. And the great side benefit of living like that in Ecuador was that we could save money. Mm-hmm. I mean, every payday we were working from there. We were working remotely. We can do our job from anywhere on the planet. We're lucky enough to have an online job where we can fulfill our work obligations with an internet connection. We were paying so little overhead, almost nothing for utilities and taxes, nothing for transportation. We didn't have to buy anything. It was cheap to eat out. We weren't acquiring stuff. We saved money every month, and we did that for years. I miss that. As much as I love the United States, I'm going to digress a little bit here.
Sure.
It is the most convenient place on the planet. You can get anything you want, anytime you want, with a phone call or the click of a mouse button. The rest of the world isn't necessarily like that. there are some things you have to do without,
And
some
that's okay. And
compromises you
that's
have to make.
okay.
That's absolutely okay. That's absolutely
Absolutely.
okay. And the expats that have the best time find a way to make their own half and half. If they can't find the brand of half
Right.
and half in the freezer they want, they find a way to roast their own red peppers. If they can't find exactly the can of roasted red peppers they want on the shelf amongst the 12 other brands. Those are the things that expats get good at doing, and it adds to your quality of life, I think. I mean, it makes you a more engaged person with your surroundings.
And I think that most people listening and watching to this, because, you know, we're on all major podcast platforms, and we have a YouTube channel as well that people are watching to see us interact and see, you know, how good looking we are, Dan, the Dan and Stan show.
Should put a little bass on.
Exactly. But I think most people are going to be looking at internationalliving.com and going there and considering retirement travel instead of just looking at good retirement travel instead of retirement relocation, even though retirement relocation is a offshoot of retirement travel.
Right.
But in essence, what we're really talking about is redefining retirement, right? Because
you're absolutely right. You talked about retirement being the second stage of life. Well, there's another stage after that. And a lot of people just aren't retiring anymore. They're retrying their lives. I mean,
very good.
If you are in the workforce and you get to 58, 62 to that point, used to be, I mean, several decades ago, by that time you were used up. Your job may have just taken such a toll on you that all you could do was sit in your rocker.
That's what I feel like now, Dan. I feel all used up.
You know, that's not the case anymore. I mean, people now are looking at retrying something. Do you want to write that book? Do you want to open the art gallery? Do you want to run the B&B that you always wanted to run? Do you want to have a concierge service where you move to a place, get into the expat community, and help other people come and do the same thing? There are lots of people doing that. Do you want to get an online job and move to Czechoslovakia or Ireland and work from there and keep making money, but do it online? Do you want to parlay your life experience into a consulting business?
Right.
All of that is possible now. So retirement has changed for everybody, and finding out what what retirement's going to be for you and where you want to do it is going to be a big step in life now. It's not going to be the last step. It's just another one.
And for the listeners and viewers, I'll just tell you a couple of stories. And I've been in the financial services business for 3 decades, but every single year I'll have calls from people that will say, boy, I wish I would have done this. You know, me and the wife planned and planned and planned, and I worked and worked and worked, and now I'm not feeling good. And now I can't do it. And I'm hoping this podcast will be impetus for people to say, you know what? I need to go do this. And it's not my nature. It's not who I am. It's not the planning box checker plotter that I've been. But you know what? Let's go try this. Let's go and let's travel and then see if it works. And if it works, we might stay longer. And exactly. I would tell people to say, instead of taking the 2-week trip, start with the 2-week trip and then take the month trip and then stay for 3 months and then stay for 6 months and try things. Because at the time of this taping, COVID is wreaking havoc. Oh, and man. On a side note, I've had 2 personal friends die of COVID recently that are in their late 50s, early 60s. And I will guarantee you that, you know, there was no bucket list checkoff for them. And I'm encouraging, and the reason I wanted to have you on is not because we always talk about money, and money shouldn't be the center of anyone's universe, but money is a tool to live better. And, you know, you're talking about the benefits of traveling overseas, the possibility of living overseas longer than you thought, and maybe even retiring overseas. But the key word is trying and starting the process. What do you think are the biggest hurdles for people to make that leap? And how would you recommend them overcoming those hurdles?
There is a tendency for people to fantasize about retiring or living part-time in places where they've had great vacations. And there's nothing wrong with that, but a vacation is a vacation, and actually living there is completely different. Mm-hmm. we think it's really important to live in a place or stay in a place long enough to realize what it's like after the vacation is over. You know, if you want to live in Ambergris Caye in Belize, I learned to dive there. It's one of my favorite places on the planet. You have to stay there long enough to find out what it's like to get your utilities hooked up, to get your phone service done, to pay your internet bill, to get mail brought on the island, to get the things that you need, and do that during off season when the hurricanes are coming, when the bugs are bad.
Right.
Every place on earth has an off season. And if you want to really try out a place and find out if it's right for you, go there during the off season and stay there for a month and try to get your business done there. You know, try to pay some bills from there, try to access your money from there, try to start a bank account there.
And you refer to that as experiment and experience.
Yeah.
Which I think is important. And I think actually to keep our brains alive and clicking and firing on the cylinders, we need to do different things. We need to get out of the daily plodding of life of what we do. There's a horrific stat out there. I think it's horrific. Most people never leave the county they were born in.
Right.
You know, but the people listening to this podcast and watching this YouTube channel, they have the option of doing something different with their life. One of the things that you covered in a previous article I read was about assisted living, because a lot of my clients are in that age group. They're thinking long-term care. They don't want to be a burden on their children and their families. Can you address assisted living situations in other countries? Because I think that's a box that, for my box checking people out there, that they're going to want to say, hey, what happens if I get sick? What's the assisted living like over there? Can you address that?
Sure. Susan and I have spent most of our time in Latin America, from as far down as Argentina to all the way up into Mexico. And in Latin American countries, families take care of their elders. That's just a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. Grandma lives at home and ages in place. Mm-hmm. If the family can't take care of her anymore, they bring people in to do that. And in most of Latin America, it is so affordable to get qualified in-home care that a lot of expats do the same thing. They age in place in San Miguel de Allende or Ajijic, south of Guadalajara, or Puerto Vallarta, wherever they are, by bringing in qualified in-home healthcare aides. It's incredibly affordable, much more affordable than trying to do the same thing in the United States. Now, Mexico realizes that that is a good business model. There are now established tertiary and end-of-life care facilities in northern Mexico, all along that border. So people can come back and forth, visit their relatives, and take advantage of the cost savings of going to Mexico to do this. There's also an entire lobbying group that is trying to get Medicare to qualify their payments abroad, so that if you want to take advantage of Medicare in Panama or in Costa Rica or in Mexico, you can do that. Right now, you can't do that. We don't recommend giving up Medicare and moving away from it and just cutting that tie. Mm-hmm. It's probably the best insurance deal in the United States, and staying in the system, we think, can be crucially important later on. Half the people who reach the age where they are looking at the end of their lives will stay where they are and get in-home care or use the facilities where they are. The other half will go back to familiar territory. They'll move back to their hometown. They'll move back to their families. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's a valuable strategy if you can take.
But what you're saying is there's options overseas.
Absolutely. There are options everywhere. It just depends on what your needs are. And as you say, those needs will change. I mean, 5 years from now, Susan and I may be talking an entirely different strategy. Our healthcare needs may change. Our family needs may change. So nothing about this is written in stone, which I think is one of the things that keeps us, I keep using the word on our toes, but
vibrant.
You know, Yeah, you
alive.
stay light on your feet. You recognize
Absolutely.
these challenges, and overcoming them feels good. It's a good thing to do. It's a good way to engage your brain.
Totally agree with that. And I think that's one of the benefits. If you wanted to just write down the benefits of that, is it keeps your brain moving.
Yeah.
Um, Interesting question that hit my head as you were talking about that was just how are people treated overseas, being a United States citizen coming overseas? Are we the evil rich people that are coming over there or are you treated well and with respect?
Every expat I know, let me rephrase that. Every place that we have been an expat, Susan and I have lived in 7 different communities in 4 different countries over the last 20 years. Every place we've gone, the locals know the difference between US citizens and the US government, because they know the difference
Very
between,
well put.
yeah,
Very
they know
well
the
put.
difference between themselves and their government and what they do. And every place will give an individual the benefit of the doubt. They'll see what kind of person you are,
Yep.
what your personality is like, how you're adapting, how you behave in the community, and judge you according to that. They won't judge you according to um, the last invasion that your government undertook, or
That's good.
the last
That's a good
tax hike
thing.
that was instituted, or the last
Right.
visa program that they canceled.
Right.
They'll judge you. They'll judge you by who you are.
So it's human beings are, we're at a stage of this country where it seems like we're all divided. I
Mm,
don't totally agree with that, because when people are in trouble, people are people. I don't care what country you're in. I'm assuming that if you're nice to people in Ecuador or wherever, they're going to be nice back, right? If you treat people
absolutely.
with respect, they're going to treat you back with respect. And they're probably understanding, whether involuntary or voluntary, that you're bringing something to the table that's positive for their community. Am I right about
That
that?
that's the reason a lot of these places have pensionado programs, retiree programs that North Americans can qualify for, because I mean, in much of the rest of the world, getting $2,500 or $3,000 a month from Social Security or a pension
Hmm.
are king's wages.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of money. And a lot of these countries are happy to let you qualify
Hmm.
for residency there, to
Sure.
have that money come into their country and be spent in their
And that's a
communities.
big decision,
It is.
changing who you are as an American citizen. But I'm assuming, and I respect those decisions that are made. But I do encourage people to look at this possibility as don't make the decision on money.
Right.
I need people to stop making decisions just on money. I need people to make decisions on their lifestyle, the fact that they're not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
There's some form of a legacy, that, not that you want to promote yourself, but you want to leave a good mark um, on society or wherever you end up. I'm just hoping that international living will be the resource for people to start trying things. If they've never been out of the country, then start with a small step. But I think should be an eye opener for everybody. Not saying that the United States is good or bad, or things are going to go to hell in a handbasket. No,
Exactly.
we're a strong country. It's a great country, but
I'm
I think
pleased
we
as
can all benefit from going somewhere else.
I'm I am so fortunate to be an American citizen. And I just want to
Mhm.
make a quick note. When you get a residence visa in another country, you don't give up your passport.
Okay.
We don't know any expats who have renounced their US citizenship. You can, there's a way to do it. You have to be really sure that you don't want to be a US citizen, but I would never renounce my US citizenship. I love the United States. It's one of the most fabulous countries on earth.
Well said.
But there are dozens of reasons why you might want to live outside of it. I mean, it's the same reason if you wanted to retire, you'd move from New York to Florida. Well, just look a little farther south. Look at Merida. Look at Panama City. Look at Quito, Ecuador. The option is there. Just think a little outside the box. It doesn't mean you're unpatriotic. It doesn't mean you don't like the United States. It just means you can live cheaper and better someplace else on what you've got.
With your decades of experience in this subculture. Can I call it that? It's a
Sure, yeah, it
subculture.
is. Yeah.
Um, have you found that people seem to get healthier, both physically and mentally, when they do this? Do you see a correlation, or have you not seen, or can you not make that broad of a brush statement?
I can absolutely say it. I know people personally who said that their blood pressure went down 20 points the month after they moved. Um, the challenges that you meet as an expat aren't the same as the stressors you have in the United States. Being attached to cable TV all the time, having to have political discussions with your friends and family.
That's well said. Say that
Things are
again.
really
The
tense right
challenges you have. What did you say again? Say that
The
again.
challenges that you have as an expat are just life challenges. You need a little ingenuity, and they can be solved. The stress that you live in a polarized, highly politicized environment are different. You can't really do anything about those. You just kind of have to plow through it and deal with it. And I mean, if your brother and your father are on one side of the political fence and your sister and your mother are on the other side, and they can't resolve those differences, you're stuck in the middle. That's tense. I much preferred to watch this from Panama City. I much preferred to engage in those conversations from Quito, Ecuador. The pressure was off, man.
Well, the one thing that's hitting me when you're saying this is there's a lot of people that reach the retirement stage that are A personalities, that's been successful, that's built up some money, etc. And what's gotten them and us and me there is a competitive nature that started way back, and it's competition. And we're in a United States is a winning society. You're a winner, or you're not, or you're competing, or you're not. Address the move or the visitation or the weeks and months spent overseas, and how that lack of competition changes you.
There's an unfortunate tendency of a lot of North Americans that we have noticed, especially people who haven't traveled before, to assume that the rest of the world is just US light, is just, America at half the cost. And that everybody outside the United States wants to be an American. And that's not true. It takes some people a long time in a place to realize that telling people that's not the way we did it back home doesn't get you anywhere.
That's like the New Yorkers that come to Florida and say, back in New York, we used to do that. I'm like, well, then move the heck back there.
Yeah.
No offense to New Yorkers.
What are you doing here?
Exactly.
There's plenty of competition abroad. There's plenty of competition in these other places, but these places are predicated on family and community and church first. The vast majority of places that Susan and I have lived, those are the priorities. It's not job, then community, then family. It's family, community, church, work.
Wow.
And if
probably the way it should be. That's the way it should be, right? Yeah.
If work gets in the way of family, your gardener, your plumber may not show up. If his niece is having a quinceanera 20 miles away in the next village up, he might not show up for work. And when he shows up next week, you'll ask him why, and he'll say, my niece was having a quinceanera. Oh, congratulations. Some people can't do that. Some people will demand that they can buy your loyalty with money. And that's not the way a lot of the rest of the world works. We're used to buying loyalty with money, and we're used to buying service with money. And that won't work with a lot of Latin Americans that we know. It just won't.
One of the things that money can't buy away is kind of a tragedy that's happening across the country, and it's happening a lot with retirees. And that tragedy is loneliness. And feeling like no one's around. The kids have moved out. They're moved away, and you're lonely. And money can't buy happiness. That everyone knows that. Money can't buy and get rid of loneliness either. Have you seen people go and try this experiment and not feel lonely, or they go over there and feel lonely still? I know you can't make a broad brush statement, but have you seen real examples of how this has actually helped people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's throw COVID and social networking in there as well as
Absolutely. Yeah.
factors that are just pushing people apart now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big reasons for a lot of people moving abroad in the first place is the expat community. Those guys are self-selected to think
Right.
the way you do and to
Right.
help you out and to form a core group where you lift each other up. A lot of people are instantly adopted into the families of the locals that they deal with closely, because when you
Nice.
move to a place,
Yeah.
you'll deal with a local shopkeeper, you'll get a house cleaner, because I never want to clean my own house again. And there are people who will do that for me and do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to know their families, I get to know their kids. You get involved in these people's lives, and it's a built-in feeling of community. You can't escape it, really. You can try to move to a place where a gated community where you don't have anything to do with the locals, where you're
Mm-hmm.
just an insular group with a lot of North Americans. You never learn the local language.
Mm-hmm.
You never interface with the local bureaucracy. Those are places that I hesitate to go, and people I hesitate to talk to, because they're not nearly as happy as the people who are out in the community, knowing their neighbors.
Right.
You know, we take that baggage with us wherever we go. You know, but if you want to be part of a community and you move to Ecuador, or you move to Panama, or you move to a little village in Mexico, you will get community. It comes with the package. There's no avoiding it.
What are some of the best value places overseas, or the best places? And I know that's hard to answer, but give people kind of a feel for the countries that are on the radar for someone like you, and for as a consultant, semi-consultant on this. Where would the countries be that you would say, hey, you might want to look at these?
You're right. It's different for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking right now at the 2021 Global Retirement Index, which is on the website. There are 9 categories, from housing to retiree benefits, to how easy it is to get a visa, to fitting in and entertaining, to the climate, to healthcare. Picking which 3 or 4 of those are most important to you and finding the top rated ones is an excellent way to go about doing the initial research to find out where to go. But this year, Costa Rica is at the top of the list. It's always in the top 5.
Okay.
It's easy to move to. It's low cost. They don't have a standing army. They have about 90% literacy.
Got it.
Most of the country is national park. I mean, if you just want a beautiful, low-key place to live, Costa Rica is it. Panama has been dealing with North Americans for 100 years because of the Panama Canal. And that is a financial engine. That means Panama is always in good financial shape. If that's what you want, go to Panama. Mexico, there are probably 1 million or more US expats in Mexico living full or part-time, because it's familiar, it's easy to get to. Most of the places are absolutely safe. I mean, if you're not producing, transporting, or dealing drugs, there are places in Mexico that are safer than Omaha, Nebraska.
Yep.
Safer than Montana. We've lived in several of them. Merida is one. I'll just throw that out. That points out the importance of picking the place in a particular country where you want to go. It's difficult to rate an entire country. It's difficult to rate an entire city like Mexico City.
Well, you can't do that here.
Exactly.
I mean, every single city has a bad neighborhood you don't want to go into, and the police don't drive through. I mean, every single one. But I would encourage people to internationalliving.com, just like it's spelled, no space, internationalliving.com. He just was reading from that site. I mean, that is your go-to place if you don't do anything else. If you don't do anything else other than listen to this, go to their site, bookmark it, and just keep going back and forth. Put it in your brain that you might want to try this idea. It's an idea. It's a retirement idea. People come to me and they might say, I hate all annuities, Stan. And I'm like, wait a minute. You already own one. It's called Social Security. So open your mind a little bit. Yeah. If you need lifetime income, that's what you need. Same thing. Well, I've heard that Mexico and those places are I saw in the news that it's dangerous. Hold on. Stop. go and learn and do your research and find out if it might be right for you. Yeah. Last question. This is probably, I saved the best for last, Dan. Okay. And this is a yes or no question. If I move overseas after the Annuity Man juggernaut is purchased by the big company, will I become a better guitar player?
Yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, see,
I can say that unequivocally.
I mean, you're talking about importance now. Now you're selling me. Because I certainly haven't become a better guitar player in the United States. So I've got to try something, right?
I moved to Cotocachi, Ecuador. I talked about that little town of 7,000 people.
Yeah.
I met 3 of the best musicians, North American expats I've ever met in my life. I got in their band.
Nice.
I found a couple of cafes that said, if you want 90 minutes just to do a solo, come on and do it. I had to get my chops together. I had to work up a song list. I had to learn these tunes. You will find opportunities to become a better guitar player, a better singer, a better band member,
a better writer.
You'll find it.
I think that's a really interesting way to end it. Is just, again, it's lifestyle. And the key word is life. And the key is your life. And what I want to encourage people to do, and this podcast, I think, has done it, is now you have a resource to start looking at it. So where do I start, Stan? Internationalliving.com is where you start. Dan's picture and face and Suzanne's on there. You can contact them directly if you have a specific question. We're going to have Dan's. We're going to have his information permanently on the site, because I think it's important for people when they're talking about retirement. It's not just about income. It's not just about protecting your principal, and it's not just about that. It's also about how you decide to live your life in chapter 2 of your life. Dan, I'm going to tell you something. I really appreciate you being here. This has been absolutely fun for me. And it's been great. I hope to have you on again. And I want to thank everybody listening to on all the podcast platforms and the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel. And my name is Stan the Annuity Man. This is Fun with Annuities, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to Fun with Annuities. Please hit the subscribe button and make sure to go to my site at theannuityman.com, where you can run your own SPIA, DIA, and QLAC quotes and see a live feed of the best MIGA fixed rates in the country, and even get indexed and income rider quotes as well. You can also sign up for my 6 annuity owner's manual books, and I'll ship them for free and under no obligation. I also encourage you to schedule a one-on-one call with me, Stan the Annuity Man, so we can have a full discussion of your specific situation. It will be the best brutally factual and truthful advice you will ever get, and that's one guarantee you should definitely take advantage of. So join me next time for the #1 annuity podcast on the planet, Fun with Annuities.